Recording too. Hello, welcome. I'm Helen, Authentic Discovery, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Today, we're talking to the fabulous Vix, and I'm really excited, a little bit nervous because she is, I know what she means to me and who she is in my life, but I will now say hello. Thank you for joining me, Victoria. Vix, is it Vix or Victoria? What would you prefer?
I don't mind either.
Okay, Vix. Thank you for joining me, and thank you. I'm really grateful to you for agreeing to do this because it's not easy. But can I ask you to introduce yourself to everyone that will be watching?
I can. Good morning, Helen. Thank you so much for asking me to join you. I am Vix, or Victoria. By trade, I am a holistic therapist. I also train other therapists, and I spend a lot of my time doing a lot of shamanic workshops, cacao ceremonies, plant spirit medicine ceremonies. So I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. My specialist area, I guess, is wellness and well-being. And my belief that's based around all of this is about giving people their power back for their own wellness and well-being. So instead of having to turn to a bottle of medicine or a doctor every time you feel a bit rough, it might be that you have the power to fix it yourself. I love allopathic medicine as well. I believe both things work really well side by side, but it's nice to be able to show people that there's a lot of things that they can fix themselves without having to rely on somebody else to do.
Thank you. I want to kind of ask you, you kind of said what, why you do, what brought you to this, because what inspired you to start this journey, this and do this?
I've always had a passion for the weird, the unusual. And since I was a small child, I always knew that there was more things out there than I could see and that I could feel. And my grandma was a big inspiration. She used to be a great maker of herbal remedies. She taught me all the old-fashioned folk remedies for ailments and different things. And as a child, I grew up making all the lotions and potions and loved every minute of it. And I guess it kind of stayed with me as I got older. So I started with aromatherapy because I'm a real strong believer in the fact that it's not just a physical reaction that your body needs. Sometimes it needs an emotional reaction as well, and aromatherapy works really well in both of those. And it kind of grew from there, and I discovered things like Reiki, and it just grew and grew and grew until eventually I was able to stop doing all of the other things that I was doing as a therapist and focus on the things I really, really love and have a passion for.
I can hear that passion. I'm going to ask at the end what's happening and where it's going. So, can I ask you a moment in your life that you'll never forget? Something that just a moment that just the first one that came to your mind then.
Probably the first time I heard my little boy call me mummy. Because it was actually the first time I was something other than Vix, or something other than a therapist, or something other than a wife. It kind of really hit home when I heard a little voice call me mummy, and I was like, oh me, that's me. That was kind of a really weird, small, but really life-changing thing.
Oh, what a beautiful moment. It's interesting you say that, because today is my biggest baby's birthday, so that mother aspect, that mom, that is very prevalent in me today. So yeah. Oh wow, that I can feel that. I felt that. That was beautiful. What have you learnt about yourself on your life's journey? What would you say was the biggest thing you've learnt about yourself, or the biggest, the best, the most profound, whatever? What have you learned? You're laughing at
all of the jumble.
What have you learned about yourself that you either, for whatever reason?
I've learned quite a lot of stuff on the way. I've learned the things that I have talents for. I've learned the things that I'm really rubbish at, but I still like doing anyway. I think probably I've learned that I have a capacity for learning, and that once I've kind of cracked something, my brain then goes, okay, what's next? And so I get led down pathways and into all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And where I initially intend to go is very rarely where I end up. I always end up in the right place. It's just that I might not have been heading there in the first place.
Okay.
So I tend to be the person that takes the long way around, probably mainly based on curiosity and a refusal to do as I'm told, from whichever source that might be. So I often tend to take things the long way around and maybe take longer over things than I should, but I do get there eventually.
Where do you want to be? I'm curious. Well, there was another question, but it was because you went about being lead and where you want to go. Is that in terms of a long term, or is that like, I want to learn how to do Reiki? But then you kind of, where is it that is it specific things or a long term thing, or?
It's kind of a bit of both. I have my long term plan is sort of coming to fruition. My long term plan was to always mix in all the elements of what I do together, so that I can live and work and function from one space. So I wanted to be able to do my work and live my work at the same time, which sounds bizarre, and function from one place. I always wanted a retreat so that I could put everything together. And sort of by accident, home has become the retreat. Not quite the retreat I'm hoping for, but it's a massive step in the right direction. My dream is to find a place that I can live, that I can also bring lots of different people together, so that on site we can have a therapist like me, a therapist like you, and we can have maybe a chiropractor, somebody who does fitness, cover it all together, mix it all in together, so that whatever it is that people need, they can have at the time. And
A
also
one-shop stop.
Yeah, a good source of cake and tea.
Yes, I like the cake. I like the cake. I love the cake.
I do the wellness, but I don't really want to have to like eat wheatgrass and drink water. Water's brilliant, but if there's somewhere that does cake and tea, that completes me.
It's one of the. I'm going to say it's not the biggest law about coming to learn from you, but it absolutely helps. I love your food and your cake. I do. So the retreat, now I've kind of highlighted that I have been to your retreat and I have learned learned with you and learned from you. So do you want to tell because there's one thing in being the therapist that's doing the treatments, but you also now you teach them, you facilitate learning. So what took you to that space?
I got asked, bizarrely. It wasn't anything I ever thought of. I initially only ever taught Reiki, and I never really intended to teach that until I developed a real passion for it and then wanted to pass that on. And when I had a salon and I sold it, and once people knew I was free, they asked if I would go and teach for them. So there was a local college that wanted a holistic therapist teacher. And so I thought, well, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'll go do it. And I actually really enjoyed the teaching part. I can't say I enjoyed the paperwork or all of the other stuff that went with it. And it got to the point where I didn't really want to do it because I was driving into the city centre and it was getting harder, and I just had my little boy. And it was actually my husband who suggested, why don't I open my own academy and teach from home? And I did the usual, nobody's going to want to come, nobody's going to want to learn from a woman at home, until he said, you've done loads of courses where you've really enjoyed it, where you've been and learned from people at home. And so I think it was about 4 months after I had Noah, I bit the bullet and I wrote all my courses, send them all off for accreditation. and basically just started teaching what I did for a living, all the things that I really enjoyed. And it kind of grew from there. And that strangely, or probably because of the passion, grew into mainly holistics I was teaching. And now the thing that I'm busiest with, that I love the most, is training meditation teachers, because they get to go out into the world and do all sorts of magical things. So I have, just from my little place, I have people that have gone out into prisons, into universities, into schools, into all sorts of religious organisations that normally wouldn't have meditations, all across the world, because I've had people have come from abroad to learn, and it's fantastic. It's like a tiny pebble that's created a massive ripple, and everywhere it goes, it's taking peace and happiness and well-being, and it's just really lovely. And I think that's one of the things I love best about teaching, is that it just has an ongoing effect.
Yeah, yeah. You do, I suppose, because I have thought you haven't mentioned this. You're talking about the teaching, and I know that you go into other places when we're allowed to go out, you go to other places and do other things. And I mean, I know where I met you, and I know what you can give. So, can you tell us something about your giving side and things that you do there?
My giving side, the things that I do that I don't necessarily mention, yeah.
Oh, am I making you say things there?
No, it's fine. My giving side, I guess the stuff that I do, time is really important, and I think it's one of the most important things that you can give to people. And irrelevant as to how much money you have or how many things you have or whatever, if you have a skill or if you have time and you can give that to somebody, I think that's the most important thing in the world. And even if I was broken living in a tent, I would still give my time to people who really needed it. And sometimes people just need half an hour to have somebody listen to them or make them feel better. It's not even my skills that they necessarily need. But I have in the past taken my Reiki skills to Norton House, where I met you, to Safa, to work on the friends and family of the injured troops from Afghanistan, which was really tough, but I loved every second of it. I met some incredible people that are just awesome, and they taught me a lot as well, definitely.
I share that with you there.
I've spent many years working with a local breast cancer charity. I began, because I used to be a professional makeup artist, so I began teaching ladies who were undergoing chemo how to put their eyebrows back on, how to sculpt their faces and change their faces, how to make them feel more like themselves. And so I used to teach classes for them. And then that grew into teaching a lot of my other workshops. So I taught aromatherapy workshops. I taught people how to make their own safe, less chemical products. So I took my skills there. And then more recently, I've started work with another local cancer support charity, offering my time to teach Qigong classes, which people really love, which are fantastic for chilling out. And I've gone to the local old people's group, which was awesome. We did a Qigong class with them recently. So as soon as we can get back out again, I'll be on the hunt for somewhere that just needs something different and somebody that's got a little bit of time to give.
That needs you.
Well, anybody really, but they might get me.
You're fairly awesome to get from. And on the getting front, it's a strange question, but because I know you live to give. What do you get from the? Because I think sometimes people forget that they get when they give, and we can sometimes get lost in, I can't give because I haven't got. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
I can't. So there's that side of it. So I suppose to illuminate and to if you had to promote giving and tell people what they would get, what would you say?
Endless amounts of stuff.
Where do you begin? Put the kettle back on and get the cake out.
I find it really hard that people don't quite kind of grasp it, but maybe they're not looking at it right. Maybe they're looking at it from a sort of, well, it's going to cost me this and it's going to cost me that. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think genuinely it's about offering rather than giving, I would say. It's offering someone something, and whether they choose to take it or not. But in return, incredible things. I always say at the end of any day that I do, whether I'm working, whether I'm being paid, or whether I'm giving, it's, have I made the world a happier place, even if it's just by one person? And genuinely, if I do something and somebody comes to me and says, that was fantastic, I really loved it, for half an hour, it made somebody happy, or it made somebody smile, or it picked them up, or made them feel better, or it just made them forget about whatever it was that was making them feel bad. It's about changing things for people, even the tiniest amount. That is enough to make me happy for days on end, because I've made a difference, and maybe I've shown somebody something that they might develop a passion for, or just given them 5 minutes out of the real world. Yeah. It's all fantastic. You meet the most incredible people. You meet the most amazing people that can teach you all sorts of things from their life experiences that I may or may never share with them. You meet people with strength and with humility and with love. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. There's no reason why you shouldn't. There is no reason why you shouldn't.
Totally agree. It's lovely to watch you talking there. There's the passion and the love, which you haven't mentioned actually, which I happen to know is a huge part of you, which is that massive bit of love.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that.
I think you've answered the kind of next question, which is how has it impacted on your life, and how does this what's the word, shape your life? If you were to put your life into a sentence with what you've spoken about, your learning, your passions, your giving, I didn't even know that question was coming. If you were to put your life in a paragraph or a sentence, actually, it's not a nice question.
It's a tough one.
That's almost asking them to write their own eulogy.
And only a paragraph. Yeah.
Don't know. I don't know where to go with this, because it's just kind of like, no, that's not where I want to go at all. So we've talked about motherhood. Well, we haven't talked about motherhood. We've talked about that moment that just kind of, it took you out of who you were and took you to somewhere else. What does this is something that's actually been around recently for me. And I had to ask one of my own children, and I know Noah's quite young. It'd be interesting. I don't know if you've ever asked him, because they're kind of like, I've had a lot of, can you not just be my mum, my mum, like, and I'm like, and I had to say, what exactly does that mean to you? What's that bit? What does that look like to you? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's it. So what does mum, what does that look like to you?
For a long time, it was the thing I was never going to do. It was a thing I admired intensely in other people that I genuinely thought I wasn't capable of. I'm not that kind of naturally, I want to say fluffy, but that sounds insulting. But that kind of, I don't mean it.
Insult away.
I don't mean it to be insulting. That kind of, you see these people that are just naturally awesome with kids, that have that, they can chat to them and they can deal with them, and that was never me. I was the one that was accidentally and potty training my friends' kids, and just hopeless, just had no concept. I have no brothers and sisters, so I didn't grow up with any babies around. A lot of my friends had their children 10, 11, 12 years ago, so I can deal with the 11 and 12-year-olds. And then when it came about, and I just thought, well, I'll be able to cope with my own. I have to admit, I'm rubbish with babies. They don't really want to sit and have a chat with you.
They don't
And
want
it's very
cake.
one-sided.
They don't want
Speaking of
cake.
giving, it's really one-sided. But as I now say, a proper mummy now, it's a weird one because it's me. Obviously, a bit of me is reined in for obvious reasons. But otherwise, I tend to kind of just be me, which then makes me worry that my child is going to grow up to be really weird.
I'm not quite sure about that, but okay.
Well, he's surrounded by all of the stuff that I do, so it's perfectly natural for him to have crystals all over the house and, you know, to go and drum in the garden, you know, that kind of thing, where all the other mums at school are probably going to Pilates and going out to Costa. I'm really not that. But I think he's learning that everybody is different, which is fine. I'm just waiting for the point to come where he comes home and just goes, "Oh my God, you're so embarrassing."
Oh, that will happen. Even if you didn't do what you do,
yeah,
it will happen no matter what. And well, I presume it does, because it definitely happened to me. They're like, and I
so
just
now
go,
you're hoping it happens to everyone.
That's where I know my role as a mother is to embarrass you. So that, I can handle that one because I see that one as part of what a mum is. But I do find it interesting that we use the word, and we do, you know, and we have, and I've asked a couple of people, especially more so in terms of their relationships with their mum, or, you know, like me as the mum, and what exactly is it that you want from your mum? What exactly is it that you think? What's that thing that you think she's not doing that you think that she should? And it's quite interesting, because then people just kind of go, yeah, because it's like, well, hang on, what is a mum? And it is a question that you kind of like, and it's about that expectation. So, you know, what expectations do you have on yourself as a mum, and what do you think a mum should be? So that it does bring that question to you, and then you're kind of like, oh, and then if you're a mum, you're like, geez, am I that to my kids? It's like a mini Pandora box that you kind of go,
yeah.
oh, maybe. But it does make people think, you know, like, well, what is a mum? What, you know, and there's a societal kind of, there's ideology of mother, there's a religious idea of mother, there's a natural idea of mother, and it's all of these ideas that are not actually
yeah I don't think I fit a category. I mean, I've managed to keep him alive,
he's gorgeous.
That's the basic point of being a mother, I think, is to kind of keep them alive for as long as possible.
Well, that was the thing up until possibly 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Definitely, I think, yeah, maybe 40 years ago, all you had to do really was make sure that they survived.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's a very recent thing that you have to make sure that they survive, that they're mentally stable, that they contribute to society, that there's all of these other things that they put on your head that you have to do. And it's like, they're alive. I didn't kill them. I didn't kill, you know, pat on the back. I did not kill my children. And, you know, before it was like diseases and things like that didn't kill them. But you have to get to a point where you're like, no, actually, I didn't kill them. Because they show you things about yourself. I'll stop there. If you want to know yourself, have a child.
Light on the dark bits.
They
shine a light on the dark bits.
Yeah, if you want to know yourself, have a child. You know,
yeah, anybody is not even your own.
You can't give them back though. So, what are your plans? Well, I'm going to ask you about this time, because I was going to ask about your future time, and I will get to that. So, what are your thoughts about the now?
The now.
The now.
Wow.
The new.
Yeah. It's weird.
More weird than you, Vix.
Yeah, makes me look normal, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's kind of like living in a film right now.
Yes.
It sort of feels real, but not real. For me, I've been, I won't say locked in the house, but I've been at home since the 18th of March. I'm technically I'm asthmatic, so I'm not supposed to go out or go anywhere. So bless him, my husband has been foraging and doing all the things he's meant to do. So I haven't really. I've been outside in the garden. I've walked up the lane to my mum and dad and had a chat to them through the gate, which is randomly odd. I guess my actual life at home hasn't changed that much, but yet again it has dramatically because I'm not working, and I work. There's not a lot of difference in my life between work and living. They're the same kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm generally 6 days a week I'm with clients or I'm teaching. In the evenings I'm teaching meditation classes or running ceremonies. And then all of a sudden it stopped and it was really weird. And I'm not very good at not working. Yeah. If I go on holiday for a week, I start to get a bit itchy and need to kind of get back to it. And so for me, it was a huge challenge as to whether I would end up needing to be locked away somewhere or, you know.
It's a bit bubble-like as well, isn't it, when you work from home as well?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, and I know that you live in a beautiful environment, and the world comes in via, as opposed to you go out into the world comes into you, and then you're looking at it and you're like, there's a bit of a disconnect on that level, you know. It's like this is okay. You know,
in a way, I'm kind of glad that I'm out sort of in a slightly rural area so that I'm used to feeling disconnected. It's just how long it's been disconnected for. And then even worse still, you put the TV on or you check Facebook or whatever, and you start to see what the outside world is doing, and you just think, oh God, it's just getting worse and worse by the minute. And it is a bit, the whole thing is odd. It's distracting. It's worrying. It's slightly frightening. I think people are dealing with it really well overall. The nice thing is that people have been able to contact me, and I've been running online meditation groups. So I've still been able to give. I've still been able to do what I do best, which is calming people the hell down and chilling them out. I have an online group that I run for people who work in the NHS, and I give them lots of meditation trips and tips and kind of mindfulness things about calming themselves down and watching their breathing and that kind of thing. So I can still do something, but I do feel a little bit useless, a little bit bored. I've learned how to homeschool. Oh my God, those people that homeschool their kids all the time deserve a medal. Yeah. I've got one and he's really well behaved, but gosh, it's hard work. It's real hard work. I've learned I've got way more patience than I ever thought I had. And I think people are gradually getting the hang of things. People are getting better at it. I really hope that if they extend this whole kind of lockdown thing, that people just get into the flow and take something from it, and they learn that half the stuff we did and half the stuff we had we don't need. I hope that people take that time to realise there's a lot of people out there who are willing to learn from it. There are a lot of people who will just go back to doing what they did before. But I think hopefully it will change something good in the world. I really hope it does. I can see it. I can see elements of it out there. I just hope people don't forget, you know, in 2 or 3 years or whatever, if this doesn't keep coming back, fingers crossed, as a kind of seasonal thing, I hope people remember that they don't need half of the crap that they had, and how privileged we are, how lucky we are to have all of the things that we have at the drop of a hat that suddenly don't exist.
Yeah. A lot has fallen away, I think, for people. I think initially, I'm just going on some of the things that I've seen or heard as opposed to seen with some of the connections that I've had. Initially, you know, people were locked down, locked up, locked in, and it was within, you know. And now there seems to be a reconnecting of like, oh, I remember what it was I really liked about you in the first place. It's for some people, and so it seems to be a bit like you know, the flower coming out, the seed coming out. You know, like there's this, like, I've got to get to this, and you know, not that I know that seeds go, but anyway, you know, the emergence,
Might do.
and then the bloom. You know, there is a feeling of a blooming of people's relationships and a reconnecting and a falling away of, you know, when a seed pops, it has two leaves that aren't the real leaves, and you know that those leaves are kind of, you know, like, oh, actually this is what, you know, I like this. And I think, I hope that people remember it, and I'm aware though that we have to normalize our new, and that, but I also I seen something on one of those memes or something like that, and it was like 20, they'd gone to the future and oh yeah, you know, 2020, I remember 2020, because it does seem, it's so like weird and unprecedented and new, like the whole world and all the rest of it. There is definitely something, you know, we were going like this, and we've definitely gone, even if we go, you know, there's been a wobble, we've had a wobble, this is a wobble, and how we rebalance after that wobble will be fascinating. I think it will be, there's such opportunity in it. That's what I keep thinking, there's such opportunity in it. But anyway, yeah. The wobble and the now, the new. So what are your plans for the next 3 to 6 months, with or without this?
Well,
do you have anything coming up or planned, or I know that you have a retreat next year, that is, isn't it?
No, this year that was supposed to be.
Gosh, is it last year I was looking at it, and this year it's
yeah. Fingers crossed. I can't say I'm holding my breath, but fingers crossed. It's a fantastic well-being retreat, teaching people how to take care of their own well-being. Lots of different classes and different things. That's meant to be in June, so I don't know. But I kind of am a big believer in, if it gets put off for a year, there's probably a reason why. You know, I think there's a reason why lots of things aren't occurring this year, and they're meant to happen at some other point. I'd rather it not be for this reason, but you know. Yeah. But generally, my plan before this happened was to keep building my workshops, to bring more shamanic ceremonies out into the world. So I do cacao ceremonies, which are just incredible. And I started offering plant medicine ceremonies, introducing people to things that they've never been introduced to before, that bring them a kind of form of meditation and a form of healing and a different way of looking at the world. So my plan was to develop those and to just keep bringing new things out. Currently, I decided, because of this, I'm going to start writing one of my courses earlier than I would have done. So I'm hoping that if all is well by the end of, say, September, I can birth something new then. If not, I will keep working at it, and as soon as we're all allowed out and everybody goes completely bonkers, I will be joining in, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was to keep plodding along and just bringing more and more things out to develop my selection of offerings, I think, was the best way of looking at it.
Okay. Where can people find you on the World Wide Web? How will people connect with you? How do you
I am primarily busiest on Facebook. You can find me under there's 3 pages. It's really complicated. So we have Relax at the Retreat, the Academy at the Retreat, and the Studio at the Retreat. I'm on Instagram as the Retreat UK and the Medicine Woman UK, which is all my ceremonies and my shamanic stuff. And then I do have a website, which is www.relaxattheretreat.co.uk.
Okie dokie. So my final question for you, Vix. What truth would you like to share?
Oh, I don't know, there's so many.
Well, speak them all then. Which one would you like to share, or which ones would you like to share?
Oh, that's the hardest thing I've ever been asked.
Oh, blimey, I'm delighted. And I thought the other question was a bit funky-dunky.
No, that's the hardest thing that's ever been asked. If I had to pick something to share that's a truth, wow. I think, do you know, am I allowed to ask a question for that?
You can do what you like as long as you answer the question also.
Okay. I was once asked, as part of some shamanic training, we all have a dark side. So we have goodness and badness. And people always imagine the dark side is like a real kind of dark side, you know, like 1 minute you're lovely and the next minute you're an axe murderer. It's not quite that bad. For some people it might be. But it was about kind of acknowledging and facing the toughest parts of you, the parts of you that you don't like. And I was actually asked if I had to stand in front of a person that was all the bits of me that I didn't like, how would I deal with that? And no good elements, just the bits that you don't like. And I started to think what I would be faced with. She would be grumpy and impatient and all the other bits and pieces that I really didn't like. And I remember standing there and thinking I would be a little bit defensive, a little bit afraid, which was the bit that worried me the most. And also a little bit feeling like a small child, you know, that kind of real afraid, that deep vulnerability. And I remember thinking, if that was the dark parts of me that could do that all wrapped up together, then at some point I must have put those elements out there into the world. And what if I made someone feel like that unintentionally? So I would never do it intentionally. And it made me sort of look at and address the parts of my personality that are there that are not going to go away because they're the balance to my light side. And so I guess it's my truth kind of involves addressing the bits of you that you don't like. There's lots of bits of us that we don't like physically and kind of emotionally, but we never look at the actual parts of us, of our personality. We never really face that. And so it was a real kind of test. And so I think speaking my truth would be to have a really good look at the bits of you that you don't like and why, and then accepting it.
Yes. Sorry, I was sitting here thinking, I hope she embraces it and accepts it. I hope she, that was what was running around in my head.
Just accepting it. It's not about fixing it or changing it, because you can't. You've just got to look at it and go, okay, there's bits of me that might make people feel bad or sad, and you've kind of got to accept it. You're responsible for it.
Yes.
But you still got to kind of accept it. And that's one of the hardest, toughest things. So my speaking of truth would be to ask yourself that question and then see if you can accept it or try and learn to accept it.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's not an easy thing. The fear around it is bigger than as most things. The fear about things is always bigger than the reality of it. And I do find, in fact, that's for me, one of the things that fascinates me about us as humans is that our fear of ourselves is just, it's like, it offends me and it angers me and it frustrates me and it fascinates me, because ultimately that's what we're, you know, any fear that we're fed or whatever taps into that fear of self. And we as humans have that in a way. And it's just this big barrier as well, because if we could just go, I piss people off and I upset people, and you know what, my shit stinks, and what about you? You know, because the thing is, fundamentally, it's usually the same stuff with all of them.
We're all made of similar stuff, but isn't that why we get triggered by other people doing things that annoy us? Because that's in us. And it's that fear of you know, when people do something and we're like, I hate that, and it's in there, it's buried in there.
I've just had
it sets us off
of the reasons possibly why, and I suppose it taps into primal stuff, that if somebody doesn't like us, they may attack us and hurt us and kill us, and then that's the end of us. So there's a logical kind of connection to it. But, you know, it is still fascinating that we rather than embracing it and accepting it, we think that it's something that we should be frightened of within ourselves, and that we do hold a fear against. Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Just thank you. I love being with you. I love spending time with you. I think this is the first time we've ever done it virtually, so
It
that's
is.
yeah, so that's new. But so thank you. I'm going to just, if you don't go anywhere just yet.
Okay.
Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the wonderment that is Vix as much as I have and do. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all again. And Vix, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.